The Pleiadian Mission, A Time of Awareness by Randolph Winters. Part 8. The metal of the beam ships. The metal used in the ships is a soft metal, which is a combination of materials from lead contained in the atmospheres of stars. Some of it is found in water, some from different plants, as well as different ores from other stars in different stages of destruction. They then convert the lead substances they have assembled into this soft metal and treat it with other chemicals to make it hard. Then it undergoes another process, which they are not allowed to disclose, in order to make the metal suitable for beam ships. The final product is an alloy, which is basically a copper, nickel, silver alloy and also contains gold for certain beam ships. We could not produce the same alloy on Earth, since not all of the ingredients are available here. For the most part, the available elements, like our table of elements, is the same throughout the universe, so you can find the same metals wherever there are planets and stars that support them. We have most of the elements on Earth that exist, but not all. Even though we could produce the alloy from our known metals, it would not be the same. We must first develop space travel in order to get to outer space and find some of the components in stars or asteroids or giant gas planets where very rare metals of greater density exist. Some of the technology to make the metal of a beam ship will be discovered in the giant gas planets of Jupiter and Saturn. You can't steal a beam ship, it dissolves. A special form of intelligence is put into the cell structure of the metal that the Pleiadian beam ships are made of. This is done for the protection of the craft in case it is stolen. Once the beam ship is separated from its owner, a special coating in the metal causes it to begin to dissolve and break down. This was demonstrated by furnishing a small piece of metal from the ship to Billy. He took it home and placed it on a kitchen table to see what would happen. Within 24 hours of being removed from the ship, the metal had deteriorated into dust. Stealing a beam ship would be almost impossible anyway, since the onboard computers are organic and capable of highly intelligent thought. They operate with a very high state of artificial intelligence that not only performs most of the tasks on board the ship, but will protect the pilot when outside the ship. The concept of computer chips and wiring that are used on Earth for our modern-day computers has been vastly improved upon by the Pleiadians to a state of organically grown intelligence that can communicate, think, and run the processes of the ship. If this concept seems hard to believe, then reflect for a moment on the idea that only 100 years ago we were crossing America in covered wagons and riding on horseback. Imagine how much we will advance over the next 1,000 years. Gravity. Gravity is of electromagnetic nature, with two unitary but contrary forces. It works to attract as well as to repel, and is connected to the mass of any substance itself. The Earth creates the coherent, and the second factor is itself the generation and use of what we call gravity. Gravity and electromagnetism exist at the same time and appear as attraction and repulsion. One of the contributing factors for the development of gravity is the warmth of the planet and the cold of the cosmos, the solid center of the planet and the atmosphere. These factors are important for the development of the gravity and the force of anti-gravity, which varies at different points on Earth. Telemeter ships. The Pleiadians have small reconnaissance ships called telemeter ships, which are used to gather information about us or whatever planet they are circling at the time. Most of these ships are unmanned and range from 9 feet in diameter to small basketball-sized devices. They are normally controlled by radio-type signals that are broadcast from their underground complex. Some of the telemeter ships also have an on-board intelligence and can pilot themselves and make decisions on their own. All of the little reconnaissance ships can be directed and influenced by telepathy. The 9-foot version has room for 1 passenger and can be flown manually if need be. The telemeter ships are used mostly to monitor all of our different languages, for this is a particularly interesting study for the Pleiadians. They have recorded all of the language that have ever been spoken on planet Earth for many thousands of years, and they continue to monitor our thinking processes to better understand the logic of why we live the way we do. It is very puzzling to them, for instance, how we can live in such a corrupt and negative environment and yet do nothing about it. Communication on the ships is a process similar to our radio, but the signals travel in a different manner. The signals are attached to faster-than-light particles called tachyons and are projected through null time, so they arrive at their destinations instantly. In this way, messages and signals can be sent across vast distances of space and be received instantly. Beam me up, Scotty! We have all watched Star Trek as the captain and crew are beamed down to a planet below from a transporter room. A very similar process is used to bring people up into the beam ship. Special matter converters on board the ship can break the matter of the body down into fine matter and then reassemble it inside the ship. In the case of Billy's contacts, the beam ship would usually position itself over his head, perhaps as high as 3,000 feet, and then within an instant he would find himself standing inside the pit of the ship. There is no discomfort or feeling of any kind. It is also possible to lift someone up into the ship by using an anti-gravity type of device in which they are very slowly raised up through the air. The wedding cake ship. In 1981, the Pleiadians were working with a new technology and had designed a special kind of ship that operated on a different scientific principle than their old ones. It was designed with a special drive system that did not necessitate speeding up to tremendous speeds to make the hyperspace jump possible, like in the little beam ships, but instead could make the jumps while almost standing still. Because of its unusual design, it has often been called the wedding cake ship, for it is round and has a ring of small metal balls around the ship, giving it the appearance of a decorated wedding cake. A race of people who are friendly with the Pleiadians, called the Timmers, had discovered long ago that within the 3-dimensional part of the galaxy there exist certain corridors or canals where material particles cannot exist or go. These canals were out of normal space and time and could not be entered at slow speeds. Once the technology was worked out on how to find the canals and enter them, the ship could move within that galaxy and re-enter the material realm at almost any point within the same galaxy, and very little time at all would have passed. The way it looked in the material dimension was that the ship would simply blink out as it entered these null-time canals, and seemingly blink back in when it exited. The canals only exist within a galaxy, limiting the distance of time jumps, for there is a field of energy that forms around each individual galaxy, that is used to facilitate this process, and this doesn't work in the free space between galaxies. This means that unlike a beam ship, which has to move 94 million miles out into space before moving into hyperspace, their new wedding cake type of craft could simply dematerialize and move itself into one of these canals and jump to where it wanted to go. A much faster process that appears almost magical. This new process was just being learned by the Pleiadians, who understood very little about it, but could at least build and operate the drive systems that had been designed for them by the Timmers. The technology had been used to build a very large mothership, but this was the first time it had been tried in a smaller vehicle. The test ship appears in the photos taken by Billy to be smaller than the normal beam ship. From my knowledge of the surroundings where the photos were taken, I would estimate that the ship was only about 12 to 15 feet in diameter. Billy only saw the ship on one occasion, but was allowed to take photos and a movie film of this experimental ship back in 1981. This was the last time he ever saw the wedding cake ship, and those were the last photos taken of any Pleiadian craft. The mothership. The technology for the wedding cake ship was downsized from the design for the largest and newest spacecraft built by the Pleiadians. A product of information provided by the Timmers, this large galaxy-class ship measures 17,182 meters, 17 kilometers, almost 10 miles, in diameter. It was assembled in space in zero gravity and is not designed to be used in any planetary atmosphere. It represents a major breakthrough for the Pleiadians, for it is the first ship of its kind that can bridge the gap between universes. On Earth, we would term this giant spacecraft a mothership. The main part of the ship looks like a large egg standing on end, while on the bottom there are three smaller round sections that are interconnected by huge braces. The three smaller sections have another brace extending out of the top and hooking onto the main part of the egg ship above them. One of the round objects provides a hatch or hangar where visitors can store their smaller craft while they are on board the huge mothership. This is a completely self-contained planet capable of providing a home for more than 140,000 people who live on board. Most of these people enjoy living in space and very seldom return to their home planet. Everything is provided for here, including a large area constructed to duplicate the outside conditions found on a planet, such as gardens, lakes, a small mountain, so that the inhabitants can commune with nature any time they wish. Living quarters, schools, manufacturing facilities, virtually everything that is needed to sustain life is on board, for the great ship has been designed to be a complete, self-sustaining, living vehicle. Since the population is so large, they designed huge airways that connect the different parts of the craft in order to move people around. These airways run inside of the huge braces that hook the three smaller sections of the ship to the main body. This allows passengers to easily move from one area of the ship to another, being 17 kilometers long. The largest airway extends all of the way up the middle of the main part of the egg-shaped craft. This giant open airway allows access to any level of the ship on small floating platforms that are used to move people up and down the airways and make it easy to get around. The air inside of the great mothership contains not only a higher content of oxygen than on Earth, but other elements have also been added that reduce the need for sleep and keep the occupants awake longer naturally. It is very similar to the atmosphere on the Pleiadian home planets. Along with the air, another consideration is food, of course. Just like on the surface world, the crew of this giant ship eats a very light diet of vegetables and fruits. They have engineered the food so that by simply munching on small amounts of these specially grown fruits and vegetables, they can also further reduce their need for sleep to as little as usually 4 hours per day, while hunger can be calmed for as long as 90 hours if they wish. The command center for the Great Mothership is located at the top of the main body of the ship and is where everything is controlled. Here, hundreds of Pleiadians and androids assist in the control of the ship. The androids are created organically by their scientists to do specific tasks. They do not have a soul or spirit as humans do, but are programmed with a tremendous intelligence to do certain functions. Most of the functions of running the mothership is done by androids, since they are very well suited for this kind of work. They can stay alive for long periods of time, they are completely disease-free, and they can be programmed for any kind of work, personality, and character, which can also be changed with the flick of a switch. They are used extensively all throughout the Pleiadian society to handle most of the manual labor and technical work, because they can be programmed with very advanced intelligence. The androids do not contain computers as we know them, but their brains would be an extension of the idea of a computer and are organically made from human material grown by scientists. For spiritual reasons, the Pleiadians do not believe in the idea of cloning, so they have instead advanced the concept of a computer into this level of living technology. You can see right through the ceiling of the command center. Even though it is solid, you can see the stars overhead as if you were standing outside. They have a way of projecting some kind of radiation beam at the ceiling, so that you can see through it, causing it to appear invisible. This way, everyone working at the command center can see exactly where they are and where they're going, not to mention that the view is rather spectacular. Visitors from many parts of the universe come together on this great mothership, so communication could have been a problem without the special language converters that everyone wears. They can read your mind and pick up on your thoughts just before you speak. It then creates the words you need to say in the language you have selected and causes you to speak in that language. When you normally learn a language, you need to practice for weeks or months or years and build your vocabulary and learn all the grammar. The converter already knows all languages in the Milky Way galaxy, so it only has to know what you want to say. Then it feeds your mind the knowledge of the language you have selected, and you can speak it. Time travel. Being the latest in technology, the great ship can move in time, something that is not possible for the smaller beam ships. As explained earlier, the older beam ships break into hyperspace to move through vast distances in space. However, hyperspace can be utilized in different ways. When the small beam ship breaks into hyperspace, this is a form of time travel where time and space become paralyzed, as it were. A better way of saying it might be saying that time and space push against each other, causing a complete standstill of time and space. Just at that moment, timelessness and spacelessness are passed by at immeasurable speeds in a fraction of a second without any shift in time or motion in the real world. In effect, this is time travel in stagnant time, whereas the beam ship appears at its destination at the same moment it leaves its starting point. For a brief part of a second, it actually exists at its destination and its starting point at the same instant. This process is nothing more than a technically generated dematerialization and rematerialization process, where no time passes because of shifting or distortion. You could say that this is time travel without actually any time passing. In a common time travel into the future, time and space are simply paralyzed and no time passes in the material realm. Yet to move in the timeless and cause time to pass in the real world, other factors are necessary. When this is done, time is not paralyzed and there is a shift in the timeless. The ship and its passengers will move forward into the future, skipping through time that cannot be reclaimed. If it were possible to monitor this event on your watch, you would see that for every 5 seconds that pass in normal space, you would move 1 second forward into the timeless. This is made possible by regulating the time difference between dematerialization and rematerialization by the speed effect. For only in the timeless zone itself can the shift in time be controlled. The timeless can be broken down into a tremendous number of intervals, which is beyond the complete understanding of even the Pleiadians, but they do know enough about it to manipulate it. For instance, a single second in the timeless is equal to millions of years in normal 3D space. This means that if the ship would penetrate into the timeless and slow down or stop, they would move so far back in time that they would never again see their home planet. Just the process of remaining for a few seconds with lower speed in the timeless would cause many billions of years to pass on Earth, and could possibly even have disintegrated into dust, while the occupants of the ship would appear normal, only a few seconds older. This may seem incredibly fantastic, but it's true. Even the brightest Pleiadian scientists do not fully understand all of the complexities of time and space, and are still puzzled by many inconceivable details to us. They have solved some of the problems and secrets of time and space, but continue to work towards a better understanding. The knowledge and necessary understanding of the technology for passing through the universe has been discovered, but they too are only at the first stages of development in these areas and have much to learn. Their current level of science, though, does allow for the possibility for travelers to step into the timeless and experience eternity for a little while. The future is not a fixed thing, but merely a projection of events based on the present. Touching eternity. During the jumps in hyperspace, a certain amount of time actually passes in this fine matter dimension. This makes it possible for the Pleiadians to actually hold themselves for a period of time in hyperspace. And while they are out of their material bodies, they make a spiritual bonding with an entity and can return to normal space with full cognition and memory of the event. At one time or another, almost all of the members of the crew have experienced this, and they have their own truth about the existence of cosmic creation consciousness and the wonders of spirit that are contained within it. In order to touch eternity, several minutes in the timeless zone are necessary to make a spiritual connection that would provide a meaningful experience. This will require that time and space be paralyzed while the Pleiadians purposely hold back the rematerialization of the ship for 7 minutes, while moving in the timeless for only a millionth of a part of 1 second. Because of the difference in speed of time between hyperspace and the 3D world we live in, the clock in our normal time will advance by 5 minutes, which is equal to 35 minutes. One other unusual occurrence that will take place for the crew of the ship is that instead of getting older by 35 minutes, they actually experience getting younger by 28 minutes. This is because, as the ship is in the process of making the leap, it will be held in a state of dematerialization for a period of 7 minutes, while not moving in time. So everyone aboard will all have aged 7 minutes. The ability to hold the ship in a dematerialized state for 7 minutes occurs because of the very advanced technology which can control the speed effect and keep the ship from slipping into the timeless. Meanwhile, in the normal world, the clock is moving 5 times faster, so this means, of course, that on Earth 35 minutes will have gone by on their watches, while only 7 minutes will have gone by on board the ship. So in effect, the aging process has been slowed down by 28 minutes, and the crew have become younger, relatively. Here on Earth, we're still wondering about cosmic creation consciousness and what spiritual effect it may have on us. If we were allowed to travel on board the guest craft of the Pleiadians while they were holding themselves outside of time to touch the eternal force of creation, we would, for the first time in our brief lives, feel the real truth of cosmic creation consciousness and be filled with the understanding of the great eternity that controls all things. Once out of our material bodies and into the timeless, our spirits can sense our connection with creation. By being able to stay there for several minutes, we would slowly become aware of the love and knowledge. This is the spiritual force that runs the universe in which we live. Here in cosmic creation consciousness is the absolute force and truth of all life, the calm, peaceful, and deeply serene feelings of love and togetherness we are all a part of. Here we can sense our connection to cosmic creation consciousness and know we are spiritual beings that are an integral part of everything that is happening. For just a few minutes we would only be our spiritual selves without a body, feeling the power and enlightenment of the greatest force that exists. There could be no better way to understand who we are and the meaning of our lives than to be in touch with cosmic creation consciousness directly as a soul. A visit from the Pleiades. One night, about midnight, after I had been at the Star Center in Switzerland for about 6 weeks, I was walking down the road towards the house and I noticed one of the Figu members standing out front. He motioned to me to come over and watch the sky. It was a beautiful night, high in the hills of Switzerland. The sky was clear with 1,000,000 stars painted against a black canvas. He didn't speak English very well, but he motioned for me to stand and watch the sky where he was pointing. He pointed to his watch for me to wait a few minutes, I guess, which I did. Soon he raised his hand and pointed towards the eastern sky. I shifted my view to where he was pointing, and there it was, rising up from the horizon, a streak of white light moving incredibly fast. It climbed up steadily and then leveled off and began to race across the night sky in front of us. Appearing as a steady stream of white light, the object was moving considerably faster than anything else I had ever seen. It was similar to a shooting star, but rising up instead of falling. Then it took a slight turn and kind of bent right up into the sky and began to blend in with the stars. I was just standing there in amazement when my sky-watching partner turned to me and said, "Quetzal." That was the name of one of the Pleiadian pilots who frequently visited Billy. He was apparently leaving the underground base that the Pleiadians still have in Switzerland, and who knows where he was going. I had just seen my first IFO, Identified Flying Object. Now it was true for me too. How the universe was created. That summer was turning out to be an even greater experience for me than I had ever hoped for. I was able to spend a lot of time with Billy and came to better understand this man who had been in touch with human life from other worlds. We would stay up late at night together watching the stars and just talking around the kitchen table. I was a night owl too, so it worked out really well for both of us. He liked to talk and seemed tireless when it came to discussing humanity's role in the universe. Our conversations would usually end up in the kitchen, which was my favorite spot for listening. Billy was very comfortable there, as it was the center of activity for the whole farm, and had a real homey and friendly feel to it. The kitchen was not very big, certainly not spacious enough for the 15 people living there. One end of the room had a doorway leading to the outside and a window over the sink with a view overlooking the valley below. The other end of the room had a couple of shelves containing a small radio with pieces of paper piled on top of it, expressly kept there so that the people could take notes whenever they had time to sit down and talk to Billy. I usually had my own notebook with me, but in most cases I found myself going for the notepaper on top of the radio just like everyone else, because you never knew when Billy might be in the mood to talk. I had just finished painting the garage one afternoon and was in the kitchen cleaning my hands. Billy was sitting alone at the table, having a cup of his favorite coffee. It was times like this that I could get some questions answered, so I asked him about the shape of the universe and what it looked like. He seemed to be in the mood to talk, so I grabbed some of the paper off the radio and started taking notes. Pleiadian science. To most of us, the universe is some large unknown area full of galaxies, star clusters, black holes, and light years of endless space. We have no concept for how big the universe might be, or its shape, or how it started. Sure, modern science talks of a Big Bang, which seems to make sense, only very little is actually understood about it, and most of us would agree that there is some kind of God force or creational energy that must be responsible for all life as we know it. While science is busy trying to unlock the logic of the material universe, our spiritual leaders are trying to better understand the role of cosmic creation consciousness energy. Seldom do these two schools of thought agree or understand each other, but eventually they must come to a common understanding. For the material world and the spiritual world are both of the universe that was created by the Creator. In order to better understand how our universe came about, let's start with the basis of understanding the Pleiadian science. They have not only been able to travel outside of time to explore the very beginnings of our physical universe, but have traveled beyond its barriers and learned from other races far more advanced than themselves about the infinite evolutionary process of cosmic creational consciousness. Our universe is inside of a much larger realm of cosmic creational energy that the Pleiadians call the Absolutum. There are 10 to the 49th power, that's 10 with 49 zeros, number of universes in this large and mostly incomprehensible realm of spiritual energy. The Pleiadians have only been able to experience traveling in one other universe so far, but they have some understanding that each universe seems to be slightly different in size and development, yet are similar in shape. It is believed that the Absolutum is within an even greater creational force itself, but nothing could possibly be understood by physical minds about that. The spiritual energy of the Absolutum is called creation. A creation, remember, does not exist in material form. It is an intelligence in a form commonly called spirit. It is a non-material life form made up of spiritual energy of all of the life forms that exist within it. This large body of creational energy, called the Absolutum, is a living life form itself and must continually evolve. Evolution is learning. The process of thinking creates energy that forms into logical sequences of thought and creates knowledge. As knowledge becomes more complex, it turns into wisdom learned through experience. It is this wisdom learned from experience that creates spiritual growth. In order for spiritual energy to evolve, it must create material life forms that develop energy through their own thoughts, engaged in their own experiences. This means that the cosmic, creational, spiritual energy of the Absolutum knows that it must create physical life forms in order to continue its growth through evolution in infinity. These material life forms are called universes. Here's how the process works. First, the cosmic creational consciousness energy of the Absolutum has a thought to continue its growth by creating a new material universe. This thought is concentrated until it becomes a unique consciousness of its own. If we could see the energy of this small thought, we would discover that it is shaped like an egg. At this point, the small thought is floating in a large pool of spiritual energy in the Absolutum between the already existing universes that are already there. This small thought has contained within it the idea that it would like to create a physical universe. This little thought takes up no more room in the Absolutum than a microdot. The cosmic creational consciousness spiritual energy of the Absolutum is doing this so that it can continue to evolve, as everything that exists must do. It has taken a small part of itself and started a new creational spirit that will develop into a full material universe. For clarity, let's call the cosmic creational consciousness energy of the Absolutum the original creation. And the new thought that is the beginning of a new universe can be called a new creation, or simply creation, which Crispy calls cosmic creation consciousness. The spiral. After years, as it were, of thinking, the new creation is still a small thought that is reasoning and figuring out what it must do to grow. Since thought is energy in motion, a close examination would reveal that it is moving in a spiral formation. The spiral is a multidimensional pathway that directs the flow of energy of this small thought. This spiral pattern was naturally created by the original creation, cosmic creation consciousness, the Absolutum, when the thought was formed, and it will continue the flow of spiraling energy in the new creation forever. A multidimensional spiral pattern A multi-dimensional spiral pattern would be impossible to draw here in our 3D world. The Spiral, Part 2. The spiral pattern that energy follows is embedded in cosmic creation consciousness. It dictates the flow of energy that contains all spiritual knowledge of creation. The Sohar. The knowledge contained within our small new thought, our new creation, is oscillating along the path of the spiral in a pulsating fashion. It is growing in intelligence very slowly. After billions of years, the small egg-shaped energy spiral has evolved its understanding of how to continue its growth and then explodes into a bright light called a Sohar. Along with some help from original cosmic creation consciousness, the absolutum that started it, the tiny new creation has expanded to the size it needs to be in order to develop physicality. It has literally pushed its way into existence among the countless other universes surrounding it in the absolutum and taken over the area that it will need to develop its own new physical universe. There are no stars or material matter at this point yet, only spiritual fine matter that has the wisdom and the knowledge it has learned through billions of years of thinking, and a little help from the original cosmic creation consciousness, the absolutum, that started it all off. The bright little Sohar now appears between the many universes in the absolutum and has just contributed to the evolution of the original cosmic creation consciousness of the absolutum and the new creation of itself by virtue of its experience. The Sohar has taken its position and added itself to the 10 to the 49th power number of universes that currently exist here. Our new creation will always be a combination of spiritual energy and physical matter. But at this point, only the spiritual matter exists, for it is still evolving to the point where it understands how to actually create physicality. This is a slow process that takes approximately many trillions of years. But again, time does not technically exist for this new creation yet. Because the new creation is slowly gathering knowledge, which must be learned step by step. Never can a life form jump ahead in development, but must always learn everything through the slow process of experience. This is a fact that rules all life forms and all universes. You might say it's one of the first laws of creation. The Ur. Once the new creational spirit has reached this level of development, it receives a helping hand from the original cosmic creation consciousness, the absolutum, in the form of a special energy called the Ur. This is the first and primary spiritual force of the original cosmic creation consciousness, and it is responsible for creating timelessness. The Ur is a highly evolved spiritual force that is also capable of creating other spirit forms who will never become physical bodies. In this case, it provides the new creation with the ability to think in a more linear and physical manner. It also provides feelings, understanding, sense and reason, and the idea of what physical life actually is. The forming of the new material universe. This new universe The new creation now uses its new thinking and reasoning abilities to create space and time, two factors which begin to form the matrix of its own coming material universe. First, the new creation begins to create belts of energy which separate space and time into 7 different layers, or bands, or frequencies of spiritual energy. In appearance, this would look something like a tree trunk. The center of the new creation contains the highest evolution of energy and is labeled the Absolutum. The second band is a slightly lower vibration or evolution of energy and is not quite as bright. The third and fourth bands are diminishing in force of energy and will serve different purposes in the continuing development of the new physical universe. The fifth band is the most important, for here's where the material part of the universe will take shape. Only in the fifth band will there be stars, planets, and all material forms of life. The remaining 2 bands are different forms of spiritual energy that play a part in the development of the material band and will always be of a spiritual nature, never containing any physical matter. It is the purpose of the new creation to develop the material band, which you can think of as a dimension, as part of its continuing evolution. The spiritual energy of the new creation, the new physical universe, can think and reason, and it has feelings. And in order to evolve, it must develop life forms which are capable of higher levels of consciousness. This is the purpose of the 5th dimension, or material belt, if you will. Between the 5th and 6th dimensional bands, there is a layer of creational energy called the changing belt, which is involved in converting energy from one form or one belt or one dimension to another. This 6th band is sometimes used for space flight, as time is different here, and great distances of time and space can be passed through in a matter of seconds. The 7th belt, or band, or dimension, which forms the outside layer of the new universe, serves the task of protection and keeps out the energies from any other universes. Since a universe is a material thing comprised of elements, based on the evolution of cosmic creation consciousness, based on the evolution of the great cosmic creation consciousness, the Absolutum that formed them, all the physical matter from other universes exist at different levels of evolution and therefore may not be compatible with our new little universe. So the outer rim, the outer dimension, the outer push belt protects us, as well as providing a kind of skin which repulses the other universes. Creating matter. As the new creation continues to evolve, the spiritual energy becomes more complex and more intelligent. As it continues, the mass of that energy also increases. This is because thought is energy, and as thought becomes more complex, it increases in force, therefore creating an increase in density. The building blocks of solid components, the neutron, proton, and the electron, are generated by this new dense thought form. This creates the atoms of the chemical compounds, which then, in their aggregate forms, create the solid outer wrap, something our scientists actually understand. This means that original energy is absolute matter, and original matter is absolute energy. The entire universe consists of matter and energy. Coarse matter is solid matter. Fine matter is energy and or light and or wavicles. The evolution of matter. The original sohar of bright light that establishes the area where the material universe will develop contained only the idea to do so. But this idea of light contains intelligence, of course. This idea was only energy in a thought form. As thoughts continue, they form into consciousness, and consciousness forms into will. Will is then concentrated until it becomes dense enough to be called fluffy matter. Fluffy matter is energy in motion which oscillates according to the pattern of the multidimensional spiral before it becomes a gas. Here is where the blueprint for all elements starts. As fluffy matter continues to evolve, it forms the first gas, hydrogen. Now we have an element with a positive charge in the nucleus and a single electron around it. Matter has been formed. And matter is energy in motion that contains intelligence. Intelligence that contains the ongoing wisdom of the new creation that started it, and therefore the original cosmic creation consciousness, the absolutum. Eventually, it will be possible to create machines which convert matter to energy and vice versa. Matter is a sizable idea. All energies can be turned into solid matter. It is only necessary to concentrate energy very strongly and concentrate it very highly. This is done naturally and very slowly over trillions of years by each new creation. For from it came the idea that started the whole process. The force of cosmic creation consciousness, spirit, condenses and concentrates any idea into fine matter energy, and with more concentration, it then squishes down into the coarse matter status, densifying itself. Thoughts are things. This is the process which will slowly evolve the spiritual energy of the fifth band into a material universe full of stars and planets and life forms. Each atom, by the way, breaks down to 7 levels of matter or energy that humanity has yet to even discover. Time begins. As the energy of the material band begins to evolve and becomes denser, the element of time provides motion. Time is an energy that moves in waves of pulses, which Crispy calls pulse waves connected to the Mayan calendar, which causes the rotation, the movement, and pulsation of coarse matter in the material belt. This happens before the energy has become gas and is in a state of concentration referred to as fluffy matter, lighter than even gas. This only happens in the material band or material dimension because time as we know it only exists there. As time speeds through the material band, it moves in a predetermined pattern set by the multidimensional spiral. This spiral provides a path which moves energy through multiple dimensions in a spiraling pattern. The Pleiadians have discovered more than 22 different dimensions so far, and feel that there are many more. Each dimension differs in the kind of elements of matter which can exist there. Some dimensions have material time, as we know it, and others move at speeds far beyond ours, while others are infinitely slower. As time passes through the material belt, the fluffy matter will begin to rotate and pulsate according to the speed of the pulses of spiraling time. As evolution continues, the fluffy matter will slowly become the gas, which will make up the stars that form the systems we live in. Each planet exists within a solar system. Eventually, all planets will form to provide the way for higher life forms to be birthed. While this process of evolution is continuing, it is time which makes it all work. By controlling the speed of all of the subatomic particles that make up matter, the three-dimensional world that we live in, stars, planets, space, holds together and forms the appearance of a solid material world that we perceive. Without time, matter would be forming randomly and would never evolve into solid formations such as stars and planets. We perceive the world around us with our eyes and our ears and our nose and our tongue and our skin. And that tells us that things are solid and that they are moving at a particular speed or not moving at all, which we all call time. We generally think of time as the transition of one moment to the next moment, and we gauge it by a clock. Recently, we have been dividing it into smaller and smaller portions for our sports events. As all matter moves from one moment to the next, it appears smooth to us because we only see it and experience it with our physical senses. Under a microscope, we see that matter, at its smallest level, is really oscillating fields of wavicles of energy, and there's actually no physical thing there. What we don't see with our eye is that all matter is constantly in motion, perpetual motion that will last as long as the universe we are in is in existence, which won't be forever. Perpetual motion, then, is the most natural thing in the universe. Our senses of sight, touch, smell, hearing, and taste are just not capable of perceiving it. Phew! Moving in time. The pulse energy of time is moving through the three-dimensional world we live in, causing the smooth flow of particles which hold everything together. For instance, the moon is really a mass of particles that stays together because time is controlling it. But what if we disturbed the speed of the particles that comprise the moon? What would happen to it? Would it move out of time? First, remember that at the smallest level, the moon is just a mass of spinning particles. Each particle has 3 stages of oscillation. The first stage is the positive charge, the second is the zero state that has no charge, and the third state is the negative charge. Billions of times per second, the particle is oscillating between these 3 states. The particle is in material form during the positive state. As it moves into the zero, null state. It is no longer material matter, but becomes antimatter, or non-material. And in the negative state, it is once again matter. The speed at which it oscillates through these three stages is controlled by time, which is moving in waves of pulsed energy. You could call pulse waves from the epicenter of the omniverse. All of these particles of the moon, then, are oscillating at a constant speed, so they are all positive, then non-material, and then negative at the precise same instant. If all the particles are doing the same thing at the same time, they can be formed into something which appears solid. If the particles were all random, they would never form a solid object. Understanding this, let's say we develop a machine that can create time energy of our own, and this machine has a speed dial on it, so that we can cause the wave of pulses, the pulse waves of our time energy, to move at any speed we want. Now, let's aim it at the moon and turn it on. At first, the particles of the moon will move at the same speed as before, so we can still see the moon. Now, let's turn the speed dial on our time machine and bombard all the particles that make up the moon with our time energy, causing them to oscillate a little slower. As we continue to turn the speed dial and slow down the particles of the moon, it will start to fade away and blink on and off. It's starting to move out of time. It's no longer moving at the same rate as the particles in the rest of the 3D world, and appears to be falling behind. As we continue to turn the speed dial and slow down the particles that make up the moon will become invisible. We won't be able to see it with our eyes, because they only perceive things in our normal pulse wave time. The moon has fallen out of time and is, in effect, time traveling back into the past. By the way, it won't come back unless we find some way to speed the moon's particles back up so they can catch up with us. Once something is thrown out of time through this method, it can't come back. Good thing it doesn't exist. Remember that time started trillions of years ago when the fluffy matter began to have motion in our universe. Since then, the matter of the universe began to move and rotate. You might say the clock of cosmic creation consciousness of our universe started, and all particles of the universe have been moving in time, in harmony, on the same pulse wave since then. The idea is that time has been going on in the physical universe in which we live for trillions of years. All of the particles of the physical reality in our universe are moving down a multi-dimensional spiraling path formed by the original cosmic creation consciousness, which birthed the idea to create our universe a really long time ago. If we were able to look closely at a small section of a spiral, we see our 3D world moving along at the speed set by the energy of our particular pulse wave of time. Each period of time is still there in particle form. The material world creates a highway of charged particles that can be traced all along the path of the spiral. Spiritual energy is not attached to the spiraling path of time, but it does flow along with it, as it were. Since we are spiritual beings, only our bodies are material, our spirits are not attached to the path, but can move up and down the path and move in time. This is Crispy chiming in again. Now, you may have heard me say this before, but please bear with me once again. Your soul is eternal. You are a holy hologram of cosmic creation consciousness, the absolutum. You are a divine spark of cosmic creation consciousness. You are a sacred fractal of cosmic creation consciousness, the absolutum. Your soul can pop into and out of any timeline it desires for the purpose of evolution. There is no such thing as a linear time to all of your past lives going in order. You are having simultaneous lives in all times of our planet, first of all, and then other planets, and let's just say it's all happening within the Milky Way galaxy, this tiny little galaxy with only a few 100 million planets and a few billion stars. Let's just pretend everything's all happening right here. And we're star seeds. Yeah. And we have a home planet. Yeah, let's pretend that's real too, okay? Cool. Now back to Randy. Imagine, if you will, a strip of film of a movie. Before the creation of digital film, whenever we watched a movie, the film was moving past our eyes at 24 frames each second. The film strip is similar to the material world that is on the path of the spiral. Your spiritual self, your soul, is like your eyes moving over it. A movie film is moving at 24 frames per second, and time is broken down into billions of frames per second. All of the particles that make up our known three-dimensional world of elements are oscillating at billions of times per second, creating the illusion of smooth, flowing, solid objects. The human soul is not part of the physical universe or time, but it is part of the fine matter dimension that does move along with it. And boy, oh boy, are we ever lucky that that's the case. Anything else would be unimaginable.